All right, in this episode of Minivan Confessions, I'd like to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is aggression in dogs. And how, in a lot of ways, it's really not always entirely relevant to properly identify sort of what's driving the aggression, at least from an owner's standpoint. For me, it's actually very important. But it is important to a certain extent for owners. For me, it's critical. But I tell owners, I'm like, don't think about it too much, because usually they use it as like an excuse, and it usually amounts to, well, he's scared, or I don't know, he's got joint problems, or he's dehydrated, That's why I try to kill that guy. So I try to dismay people from getting too into analyzing what's driving his behavior and just kind of trying to address it, which you do in a multitude of ways. Anyway, so the Cashmeousside girl, from Dr. Phil, I love her. She's like one of my fucking heroes, because she talks shit to Dr. Phil. And by the way, update, I think she's doing a little better. I don't know, I saw something on YouTube. She was back on Dr. Phil, and she was like less of a cunt. Like, she was I think they sent her to some school in Idaho, where they can like beat the kids, and they like let her play with horses. So she was like less shitty, but she talked shit to Dr. Phil, which is great. She's like, I made you, Dr. Phil. And God, that's awesome, because that guy's a total piece of shit. Anyway, that's tangential, but there is a dog version of the Cashmeousside girl, which I don't admire at all. And it's totally created by human beings. It's not natural, okay? And there are tons of kids on that fucking show that are pretty good representatives of the kind of dog I'm talking about, the personality type. Like just some piece of shit kid. Like, the fat kid that like slapped their mom once? It's like, responsibly rip his fucking head off like a gorilla. What are you doing? All right. And again, those kids are created by, improper parenting. It's like, what are you, nuts? How could you let him do that? Like, it should never get to that point with a dog or a child. So, the dog version of Cashmeousside, kind of like Marvin, that little freak I just trained, who's a wild boy. Decent representation of what I'm talking about. Although Marvin is kind of a Martian too. He's out there, man. But it's just a dog that's been spoiled to death to the point of being dangerous. And what they're suffering from is a confusion of hierarchy. They're probably naturally, upwardly, socially mobile enough where they'll vie for filling a leadership void if one is present. And they'll easily, if you send the wrong signals, they'll easily start to think that they're actually in a leadership position, which confers upon them, right to discipline. So you start biting the owner and stuff. But it's almost like actively created by the human. I mean, it's almost like work you have to do to create that situation, but people do it all the time unwittingly. And it's not their fault. It's just they've been polluted with misinformation about dogs, because it's so hard to find really what should be just common sense information. Anyway, don't allow your dog to be the Cashmeousside girl, okay? And that's just common sense. If a dog is, it's easy to see. It's like the dog doesn't listen, doesn't respect you. He's demanding, whether it's affection, food, attention. It tries to make travel decisions, so it won't walk down the street or pulls you down the street. It's just a bit of a cunt. It's sort of like, you kind of know it when you see it. I mean, this stuff is kind of intuitive to me, maybe, but like, come on, man. Like, if a dog's a total dick, it's easy to see. And here's the thing that confuses people, though. Those dogs also have a ton of fear aggression, which leads, again, people to making kinds of like excuses, like, oh, he's afraid. Well, yeah, he is afraid, but that's that's a symptom of, first of all, he's probably not, a lot of times those dogs don't get out into the world, they're underexposed. But he's in a position of leadership in a family social unit, and he's a fucking dog. He can't even cross the street on his own. So, of course he's afraid. And the dogs like that you rarely see a dog that's truly dominant, right? So he's faking it. You know, he's been put in a position where he just kind of has to fake it to make it, and he's just never going to make it. So yeah, there is a fear component to all aggression. Okay, so like defensive aggression. The dog, which is used a lot in protection training, competitive protection work, the dog is defending himself. Police dogs, that's really important, or defending the handler. And he's almost, it's an existential kind of fear almost. And it's a drive, that's actually a drive that I think is largely genetic, and it's not a bad thing. It's kind of natural for dogs to have a baseline level of it, and it's something you can really manipulate in protection training. So there's very little aggression, although truly, truly dominant dogs, I think, are characterized by just very low fear. They're almost like psychopaths, except they don't lie or manipulate, but they're the truly dominant dog. The number one most salient characteristic is super low fear, and they tend to be pretty cool unless you try to get them to do something they don't want to do, and then they'll try to fucking kill you. But anyway, that's so rare, it's like barely even worth mentioning. So aggression and fear tend to almost always go hand in hand, if not always. So don't use that as an excuse. Oh, well, he's afraid. Yeah, all right. He might be afraid. And a dog that is exhibiting true fear aggression, it's totally unrelated to the Cashmeousside syndrome, you do handle differently. And I'm going to get to that in a second, because I have a great example of that I'm doing a board and train with right now. But if it resembles fear aggression, but the dog is also deeply spoiled, is taking over the household, doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't. You don't have a choice. There's no way around conflict in that situation that I know of. I mean, you can take steps to mitigate it in training, but you have to really assert yourself as being in a leadership position, because they don't want to give up the perks of being the CEO, despite not wanting this responsibility. Anyway, so real fear aggression is something I have right now. I have a dog who just came in. He reminds me of another dog I just finished a residency with. Dog Ace, awesome dog. Except this guy is like Ace on steroids. Like he will fuck you up, this dude. He's like 80 pounds, pit mix-ish. He looks like an American bulldog almost. Really cool dog. I like this guy. He's got territorial aggression, be reactive. Yeah, he's insecure, man. He's afraid. He doesn't want to move forward and to bite. All right? He just wants you to leave him alone. But in the kennel, because dogs like that have reactive issues on a leash, it's sort of a confinement issue. They feel like they just can't get away, and it tends to be magnified in the kennel, right? Because now they got really no place to go. Getting him out of the car last night, I had to use a catch pole. It was scary, you know. Fear is your friend in training. You got to pay attention, man. So if you're a little anxious as a trainer or an owner, pay attention to it and try to use it to sort of like steer you in a cautious direction, but don't, never panic. So I had to use a snare pole, but he was like, I took him out of the kennel, I opened the door, there was a leash on him, and he didn't want to come out, and he squirmed out of the kennel, and he made it into the front seat. I was like, oh shit. So I'm like trying to just see if I can poke the door open half an inch, just to see if he's like gonna freak out, banana, trying to bite through the window. Like, I wish I filmed it, because he was fucking nuts. It would have been a great before video. Scary stuff, and it was hard. Once I finally got him out, he was cool. We managed to do it with a very low level of conflict. Getting him in the kennel was a pain in the ass. Getting him out was a pain. In a few days he'll be fine. But this guy is scared, and he's insecure. but he's actually a very sweet dog. He is not, as far as I can tell or know, I don't think he suffers from a confusion of social position. I think he hasn't had any leadership. And he doesn't, he's not really upwardly socially mobile, but he hasn't been exposed to much. And he's afraid. He's probably naturally territorial as well. And, you know, he doesn't, I can tell already once he gets fully comfortable with me, we're going to be best friends. And I'm trying to get there with basically zero conflict. But, you know, you got to build the relationship and build trust, but he doesn't fully trust me yet. He's afraid. Not a spoiled dog. And I'm going to deal with him radically different than I would say like a dog like Marvin. Okay? So I don't know if people really have the eye to differentiate between the two, but it's kind of critical. All right? And if your dog is skittish like that and has really aggression problems, go slow with him, try to build him up. You don't have to be tolerant of the aggression, though. You can sort of gently let him know, calmly, assertively let him know that isn't cool, but focus on the building up part. The dogs that are the Cashmeousside dogs, it's old school marine shit. You got to break them down and build them back up, I think. The breaking down part, hopefully you don't have to focus on too heavily. It depends on the dog. But it's critical to differentiate between the two. And if you're basically, a good way to look at it is, does your dog run the house? Does he control all the resources? Food, rest either takes over the couch, growls at you when you tell him to get off, growls with toys, barks at you when he wants something, shit like that. Just cunty behavior. Not he's acting like a psycho, like you're trying to put maybe a collar on him and he's like, you can tell he's nervous, but maybe growls a little. That is probably a little different, but like if you're like, get off the couch, or he's like, when you get food, because you won't share it with him, you got to Cashmeousside dog, and it's a different ball game. You got to let that motherfucker know, okay? So I hope that helps a little bit. A little long-winded, but it's interesting, and it's, I think, very important. Most owners, they have a problem with being consistent and assertive, so don't let your dog be like one of those fucking Dr. Phil kid dogs. It's not okay.